Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here. Happy to be with you guys talking about some surprise cut/trade candidates. This type of video always gets the comment section riled up, but I think people forget the first word. Surprise! Like, this is not me saying these are going to happen. These would be surprises, which means they are not very likely, but they're not out of the question. So, I've got 5 guys that might get cut, that might get traded, going into training camp and maybe in the early stages of camp as well. But let's get started with my first candidate, and this would be more of a trade, and that is KJ Hamler. So, if you don't remember, a few weeks ago, Denver and KJ Hamler agreed to restructure his contract by adding some incentives, which I'm sure Hamler loves to see, right? If he's able to reach some milestones, he's going to get some more money in his bank account. But the team also added some injury protections to protect themselves in case, unfortunately, another injury strikes. If you don't recall, Hamler suffered a torn pec while training in March. It was a long list of injuries, and it sucks to see. It's a real bummer. He suffered a major ACL and hip injury 2 years ago. He fought his way back from that. Last year, he really wasn't 100%. We kind of see him go back and forth between the active roster and missing some time as he continues to get back to 100%. And then this year, he suffers a torn pec while working out in March. He has played less than 50% of games so far in his 3-year NFL career. In the Broncos wide receiver room, it's pretty jam-packed. I mean, KJ Hamler doesn't even have a spot at the table at the top 4. I think it's Judy, Sutton, Patrick, and Marvin Mims. So if KJ Hamler is a wide receiver 5 on Denver, and we're into preseason and another team suffers an injury at that position, wouldn't that team make a lot of sense as a KJ Hamler trade destination, right? I mean, he has shown some good moments in his career. 620 yards and 3 touchdowns. The issue has always been lack of availability. But if KJ Hamler is going to be a wide receiver 5 for Denver, and another team has a couple of injuries pop up at wide receiver, and Hamler could slide up to wide receiver 3, this could be like a Trinity Benson trade in my eyes. I think a trade happens at some point with KJ Hamler. I know no one likes to talk about trading players away, but this is just my opinion, and it's the reality of he is towards the bottom of this team's depth chart. So if a team is willing to throw a pick Denver's way for the Broncos wide receiver 5 who will hardly see the field, I'm sure George and Sean Payton won't think that long on it. So I think at some point Hamler does end up getting moved. The only thing that could drastically change that is if Denver has a rash of injuries at the wide receiver position and they can't afford to move on from another player voluntarily. But let me know, have you given up on KJ Hamler? Be honest with me. I have. I just don't see him having a long-term future in Denver. It's all to injuries to blame, and that sucks. Injuries blow. They suck. Everyone hates them, but it is the NFL, and it's not unique, and it happens all the time, and it's a big-time bummer, but it's the reality of the situation here. So for that reason, Shark Tank, I'm out. Second player that could be moved, and this would be a cut candidate in Mike Purcell. So this would be year 2, I think, of talking about maybe Purcell being cut before the 53-man roster cutdown day. But there are some savings to be had. $3.5 million by moving on from him. And so that's a good chunk of change for someone that Denver might not view as a starting caliber player anymore. Last year for the Broncos, he appeared in all 17 games, but he only started in 4 of those games, which was a career low for him in the Mile High City. PFF ranked him as one of the better interior defensive linemen, though, 42 out of 127 qualifying players. So this is not a Mike Purcell sucks, let's cut him conversation. This is a, hey, $3.5 million are decent savings for a guy that might be a backup on this team. So Purcell last year, in case you're not familiar, 45 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1.5 sacks. I think that 1.5 sacks was at least a career high in Denver. It might have been a career high altogether, and 0 forced fumbles. But when I look at Denver's defensive line depth chart, this is a room I'm very excited to watch for in the preseason because the only things I can say as facts are Zach Allen and DJ Jones, if healthy, are starting week 1. After that, it's a big guessing game, right? It's definitely a training camp battle. Will it be Jonathan Harris? Will it be second-year player Matt Henningsen? Will it be Tyler Lancaster, who they added in free agency? Could Mike Purcell make some noise and move up the depth chart? This is a training camp battle to watch for. Who will start on the defensive line opposite Zach Allen and next to DJ Jones? I personally would hold on to Purcell. I think the depth at the defensive line is a bit shaky. You've got Wazurike and Henningsen, 2 day 3 picks from last year, entering their second season. That showed some good moments last year, but I didn't come out of last season thinking, okay, Denver's set at defensive line. Those guys looked like bona fide NFL talent. We're good to go. I don't want to see this team get soft on the defensive line and start getting pushed around in the trenches. So for that reason, I'd hold on with Purcell. It's not like $3.5 million is going to drastically change all that much. So it's not my money that Denver's spending. So I'd rather hold on to Purcell and keep some extra depth and experience on that defensive line. Quick little self-plug here. Consider subscribing if you have not already. We come into the office every single day at Chat Sports to get you guys daily content. So if you're looking for a daily Broncos YouTube channel, this is the spot for you. We're always putting out fresh news and rumors, breaking down this team, going into the weeds, talking X's and O's. And if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, then this is the channel for you. So please consider subscribing down below, because the more subscribers we get, the more studio space the Broncos Breakdown gets here at Chat Sports. And that means more videos for you guys. So it's a pretty good circle of life here within the walls of Chat Sports. The third candidate to either get traded or cut, but Nik Bonitto. This is definitely, going to get some people sitting up in their chair. But just kind of stick with me at least for 60 seconds, and then you can bash me in the comment section. But I'm going to talk about Nik Bonitto because the former second-round pick was, let's be honest, relatively underwhelming last year, especially at a position where if you were good, you would get playing time, right? Randy Gregory missed majority of the year. Bradley Chubb got traded halfway through the year. So both of your starting outside linebackers were off this roster or inactive at whatever at some point, and Bonitto never really made much with that opportunity. He was limited to just 35% of defensive snaps last year. He was a healthy scratch at some points, and PFF ranked him as the 106th qualifying outside linebacker out of 119 players. This is a long shot because you don't move on from second-round picks after just bad rookie seasons. That's not why I'm advertising this, right? There are a lot of rookies who don't have great years. You don't just say, well, cut them or trade them because year one was not good. No, if that was the case, no rookie would really stick on for very long. At least majority would not. But because you have Sean Payton now, and he's going to have a lot of say in this roster, I would not be blown away if Sean Payton steps into, the war room when they're trying to cut down this roster and he goes, hey, I didn't pick Nik Bonitto. He hasn't been good so far, at least last year. If he's had a bad camp so far, why are we holding on to this guy? Just because you screwed up in your draft last year doesn't mean I have to be tied to him. So if Bonitto has a bad training camp and a bad preseason, I would not be like, whoa, you could not see it coming, shocked if Denver moves on from him after one season. Like, it's a long shot, no doubt about it. But I've seen crazier things happen. Bonitto was, we'll throw his stats on screen, pretty milquetoast his first year. 14 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1.5 sack, 1 forced fumble. He had a great game against the Cowboys in the preseason, if I remember correctly. I think it was the Cowboys game. But unfortunately, we just did not see a whole lot of him in the regular season. I think it was the Jags game in London when he got that sack. But outside of that, we just did not get a whole lot of, Boomer Sooner on the screen. Fourth player we're going to talk about is Albert Okwuegbunam, the former Missouri Tiger. This could be This could be a trade or a cut. A trut, that's what it's called. So he's competing for that tight end 2/tight end 3 spot with Chris Manhertz, who they signed in free agency, and Adam Trautman, who they traded for during the draft. He was with the New Orleans Saints. So if you know that was a Sean Payton trade right there, and I'm guessing if Sean Payton signed Chris Manhertz and traded for Adam Trautman, he wants those two guys on the roster. And Greg Dulcich is making this roster, so just like that, Albert O might be on the outside looking in. This is how about this? The moment a starting tight end or tight end 2 gets hurt in the preseason or training camp, and that fan base goes, who's the tight end we could trade for? Albert Okwuegbunam will be on every single Bleacher Report article. You know what I mean? Like, any type of article of 5 tight ends this team could trade for because they lost their starting tight end. Albert O will be on that list. Denver will be getting a call before their preseason game even wraps up because he is on the outside looking in, I think, for this roster. I think Denver goes with 3 tight ends, and I just have a hard time making an argument that Albert O is more likely to make the roster over Greg Dulcich, Chris Manhertz, who they signed in free agency, or Adam Trautman, who they traded for in April. Unless Albert O lights the world on fire during training camp and preseason and makes it impossible to cut him, I think he could be on the way out in Denver. Before we get to our last candidate, make sure you get yourself your very own Broncos retro t-shirt. The sale continues, but it won't last forever. So if you have been a procrastinator like myself, don't put it off any longer. Go to chatsports.com/DENretro. That link's in the comments and the description of today's video. Okay, my 5th and final candidate is a trade candidate. Kind of like the Nik Bonitto one. Just give me 60 seconds to explain myself, and then you can rip me a new one in the comment section. But this would not be a cut candidate. This would be a trade candidate. Denver could save nearly $5 million from moving on from Josey Jewell. And Denver drafted Drew Sanders in the second day of the 2023 NFL Draft. Kind of spelled Josey Jewell's time in Denver coming to an end, right? They extended Alex Singleton 3-year contract. They draft Drew Sanders. Josey Jewell enters the last year of his contract. This is not a Josey Jewell stinks, let's trade him. No, I am not advocating. I want to make this clear, very, very clear. Even though some people are still going to say, stop trading Josey Jewell. I am not advocating for trading Josey Jewell. I am merely acknowledging the very real possibility of when you extend one off-ball linebacker in the offseason and draft another one a month later, that doesn't always signal that the other off-ball linebacker, in this case Josey Jewell, is a guaranteed lock to make the 53-man roster. And that's the whole point of the video. Surprise trade/cut candidates. This would definitely surprise me because last year, Josey Jewell was one of my favorite players on this team. He was so good. I think it was that Texans game, 128 tackles altogether last year, 7 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. For an off-ball linebacker, he was a playmaker, right? 2.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. I believe he had an interception. He picked off Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the guy was awesome last year. He is still a very good football player, and I would like to keep good football players on this team. But I can also see the writing on the wall of Alex Singleton's extension, Drew Sanders' draft pick. If a team comes and makes a good offer for Josey Jewell, the Peyton Brass go, well, maybe Drew Sanders in the pick is better than Sanders on the bench and Josey Jewell writing out the last year of his contract. That's all I'm going to say. But who is your trade/cut candidate? We just went through 5 players. Let me know if I forgot someone. I went surprise only, so you can't go mainstream. No Judy, no Sutton, nothing like that. But let me know who your surprise candidate is to get traded or cut as we get ready for training camp. It is time for our summer hot takes, and we are filming today's video during our live show, Tuesday, 3 o'clock Mountain Time. So the weatherman told me it would be 94 degrees today, and that gets us a first take hot take. And it's got to be hot for new first takes because, well, I mean, Skip has no one to debate with anymore. But I think this is Dak Prescott's, this is not even Denver related, Dak Prescott's last year in Dallas. I just feel like Jerry Jones knows that literally his timer is ticking down, and he has seen Dak Prescott be very good for this team, but not get them over the hump in the playoffs. So you're telling me if Dak is on the hot seat and Dallas starts falling in love with, say, like Quinn Ewers or something like that in the draft, they might not make a move? I don't know. It's a first take hot take, but I think this is Dak's last year in Dallas.